us a little introduction.
I'm Amanda Welch. My business is Brooksvale Design, and I am located outside of Seattle, Washington, in Woodinville. I run an interior design business. My ideal client is someone willing to trust me in my recommendations on upper end finishes that will work with the value of their home and that will last a long time in their home, and to do it right and to not cut corners.
What kinds of corners would you have to cut if you were to allow a lower budget project through your system?
The thing is, if I take a lower budget project and I'm recommending things that there's a chance that they're going to fail, like I feel bad that I've recommended a faucet that I know is probably not going to hold up and it's probably going to leak. Like, are they going to remember, like, oh, well, I said I only wanted to spend $100 on a faucet. They're going to
No.
be like, oh, Amanda recommended that faucet. Well, I tried to tell you that that faucet was going to leak. I'm there to tell them what I think is the best type of product that will work the best. And I always, even now, do the high low thing with clients, even on $1 million projects. We might get a chair from an overseas vendor and we might have our dining table made locally. There's always the balance of cost of things, always.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how the products work and last, I feel like it's my job to steer them in the right direction. If I allow those lower budget projects through, I'm not being true to myself as a designer. I'm letting them do something that I know it's not going to hold up well, or it's going to deteriorate over time, or I know something that will work better for their family or their life. To really give my professional advice and have it taken seriously is important. And on lower budget projects, that just doesn't usually happen because of cost.
Why did you hire me?
I hired you to streamline my process. I constantly felt like I was saying things over and over and over again, or I thought I was saying them. And then apparently I wasn't, because people were asking questions and people were not understanding what they were supposed to pay for. So I wanted verbiage, documentation, so that everybody saw and heard the same things, right? I also wanted to figure out who my ideal clients were and put out on my website, which I know a lot of designers don't do that, but I wanted it to be clear so that I wasn't fielding extra questions and to weed out clients that weren't my ideal clients.
When we were getting started, you had
Yeah.
just gone through a beautiful website design process. You had just launched a new
Mhm.
website. A lot of designers would assume that in that process, these kinds of things would have been taken care of. Do you have a sense of why that didn't happen until we worked together?
Well, I know why it didn't happen. I think that my website was missing information because website designers, their job is to make it look nice. It's not their job to provide descriptions or script what you do for your business. I mean, they might work with a doctor and a lawyer and a therapist and a computer company. And I mean, even, you know, my like good friend and family probably couldn't describe what my job is or what I do. So a website designer, I went to him with a vision. I had a logo update, and then he put together what I wanted on my website, but he wasn't going to write anything for me. And for me to write it myself is really hard.
The copy that we started with, it was solid copy, just had some gaps.
Right. It was minimal. And I think that's the other hard thing is that when you look at a lot of designers' websites, a lot of them don't have a lot of copy. They don't have a lot of words. It's all pictures, which I get. I mean, those pictures cost, $10,000 a day. They should be the focal point of your website. I agree with that. But if you don't have any verbiage, then how is anybody out there who's finding you supposed to understand how it works and how much it costs? That's the big thing, I think, is how much does it cost? And nobody put that information on their website.
As you say about the website designer, they don't know what your process is. And I wanted to make sure
Mhm.
I wasn't making any assumptions, even though I am also a designer. I said, how does the process work? What is Amanda's level of involvement and participation in the project? Like, what should the client expect? What are the clearly defined steps along the way? Like, how far will Amanda go? Are you designing? Are you implementing? Are you purchasing? When you put all that information together for me, was it easy to come up with answers for that?
I Obviously I know how it works. It's my business, it's my job, But I think it's a hard thing to answer because it doesn't always work the same ever. It takes the general same steps, but it doesn't work the same way from client A to B to C to D to E. I mean, it's every single time there's something that's a little bit different, right? And I think that's where you get hung up and like trying to explain what you do. It's just never the same. So yes, I can explain it, but it's a hard thing to explain, which I think is probably why there were inconsistencies because it's hard to explain.
You said to me in a follow up email, I've spent so much less time on the phone fielding bad leads. I'm able to focus on the good leads, and that they are not asking all the same questions when you're halfway
Mhm.
through the design process as they were. So that means we must have succeeded
Mhm.
in conveying information that we weren't conveying, even though it was hard to convey.
Yeah, we did.
What's the difference on your website from before to now?
Well, before I had little icons that said like, this is how the process goes, but it was literally just words. And now there are descriptions and there's an FAQ page, which actually someone recently told me that they hired me because of the FAQ page.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
And
actually,
so,
let's pause on that for a second because you said to me that you wanted the kind of client who would be a proactive partner. And so the
yeah,
kind of client who's going to be a proactive partner is actually the kind of client who would read and appreciate an FAQ page. So those do
yeah,
go together.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If the person, the potential client wants to understand and wants to read about what to expect, then they can. Not everybody wants to do that. Some people are too busy to do that. And they say, I like these pictures. Great. Let's talk. But at a minimum, the pricing transparency is there to understand kind of what kind of investment you're getting involved in, and also in the intake form. So you're going to see it more than once. And if you're somebody who says, I'm not going to pay a designer $10,000, then I'm probably not the right person for you.
Pricing. You didn't have a
Yeah.
lot of price signaling. Now you have very clear price signaling.
Mhm.
How did it feel to take that leap? I know a lot of designers are really nervous about that.
To take the leap to put pricing information on the website did feel scary because I think that it kind of puts you in this category of I only work with people who are willing to pay X. And that was scary for me personally because I knew that's what I needed to do, but I didn't necessarily want to be that exclusive or that narrow. However, it has been very good for me, even though I didn't necessarily want to do it.
Can you dive into a little bit
Yeah,
more of how it's been good for you?
it's been good for me because I either needed to like hire a junior designer to help with those smaller scale, smaller paying clients, or I needed to just nix them. Nixing it for me was hard because I just I didn't want to be, I think designers get kind of a bad rap. You know that. I know that. People say it to me all the time. I hired someone who was just not nice, who cost way too much money. I felt like I was ripped off, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that only working on hiring projects makes me that kind of person. It's just me figuring out what works for me and my business and my family and my personal life too, because those two things, when you own a business, go hand in hand. I think that's why I was afraid of it. I didn't want to be a snob.
It links to the other part of why we work together because
Yeah.
you wanted to shine a light on your personality. Your website was completely missing any personality at
Any
all. It was
personality.
just
Right.
vanilla.
Mhm.
Why do you feel like you weren't able to put your own personality into your own writing?
I think that I was not able to put my own personality into my website because that's not the norm. I needed the push from someone else to say that it was okay. It's okay to like put your personality and your true self on your website. And I just think it's hard to write about yourself. Like I can talk about my project all the time, but to like write something about yourself that you feel like is authentically you without being showy or too much or too little, right? I think takes hiring a professional to help you capture yourself. And it's just the time for me. The time for me to do it is not there and to do it well. And it would have just been kind of halfway done. Like I wrote my own copy. I did it halfway. It's here. It's fine, but it's not great.
When we started, you had a really close colleague that you think very highly of. And you
Mm,
felt like in real life, you guys are such different personalities, but on these two websites, you're like, I can't even tell myself apart from
yes.
my colleague.
Now a lot of people say to me like, "Oh, you seem just like your website." Like, that they connect that I come across the way my website presents me, which was important to me. I didn't want to appear to be the same as every other designer. I know that the way I work with my clients and my level of personality that I have with my clients or closeness that I have with my clients, even I'll say that is different than the way a lot of designers work, and I'm okay with that.
What have been the changes in your business over the last year or so?
A big change actually is that the new website and the verbiage on the website and the price signaling have led me to only really working with at least ideal scope type projects. Like I'm not working on small projects anymore. And narrowing to that also led me to always purchasing materials on my projects. So I kind of narrowed to the right type of projects and the right scope of work. I used to say to my clients, okay, well, like I'm happy to help you purchase with your credit card and you can use my discount, or I'll purchase for you. Just depends on kind of how you work and how much involvement the client wants to have. going through this process and narrowing to the right type of clients and the right scope of work that I provide has allowed me to say, I have someone who works for me. We together do the purchasing, and that's part of the service we provide. It's like, it's not a this or that. It's a, this is what we do. That in and of itself increased my income, my earning power. And just the verbiage of the website and the information being clear probably led to like 20% more inquiries that are like good inquiries and solid inquiries, and me having to not sift through and respond to, probably 10 or so leads a month that are just not the right thing. Which for me, if not, that's not just like, if you're not the right person for me, I'm not just going to be like, I don't want to do this. Bye. I'm going to like say, oh, thanks so much for reaching out. I'm going to give a thoughtful response with a, this is who you should call, which takes, 15 minutes or so to write every single time I do it. And so if I don't have to do that 10 times a month, that's 150 minutes a month that I am more productive.
Not to mention the emotional toll of having to say no to
Yes.
people.
And yes. And I hate to say no to people, especially when it's somebody's neighbor, my favorite client, John's sister. It's like, it's so hard. I still get those types of inquiries.
Sure.
I just recently took the DIY design thing off, which helped because that kind of took the last bit of those people out. Now it is more like someone who recommended me on Facebook, or somebody who I worked with their neighbor or their cousin or whoever. Um, and I still have to say no, but so I've learned how to do it, I feel like, kind of eloquently, and I don't have to do it as much, which makes it easier because you're right. Mentally and psychologically, it is exhausting to just say no to people all the time.
Our job is already exhausting enough as it is.
Yeah, right. One of the other big things that was an issue for me that we worked on together that has made my life way easier was the initial meeting or the initial consult. And I always did that at my hourly rate. We switched to a method where I do it at a flat fee of $350. I don't ever measure at that meeting. I go to the meeting. We talk about, the design process. We talk about the space. We talk about the goals, the budget, the timeline. We talk about all of those things. And then after that meeting, you made me an email that I send to people that says, I'll be back with a proposal in X amount of days. I send out the proposal, and I have not one time had someone not pay the initial design fee, which prior I had on multiple occasions a year, I would have people who just didn't hear me say that I charged my hourly rate for the initial meeting. I think actually what led me to like really do this with you was that I had someone who acted like they were going to hire me. I went out and met with them, expecting them to pay me. I measured their house, which I know that, and when I say that out loud, I'm like, this sounds dumb. So I was there for like 2 hours. And then not only did I not get the job, but they also did not pay me anything because they did not hear me say that I was expecting to be paid for my initial meeting. So that has not happened one time. Everyone has paid me. I have had a couple people who I went to an initial meeting for who hired someone else. I think it's happened twice.
But you still got
But at
paid
least
for
I
your
got
time.
paid.
Yeah.
But I got paid for my time to be at the initial meeting.
Take me back to before. Like, when were you telling people that they would have to pay? Was it in writing? Was it on the phone? And when were you charging them? And then
Right.
contrast that to now.
People filled out my intake form, and then I would say, great, thanks for reaching out. Let's set up a phone call. I would have a phone call, and I would explain to them that we had an initial meeting where I just charged my hourly rate. I send a bill at the end of the month for however many hours are at the initial meeting. And then after the initial meeting, I would send a proposal just like I'm doing now. Um, but the part about how much they were going to pay for the initial meeting was something I said verbally during the phone call. Yeah, somehow it was the saying it on the phone. And I have to think that I'm certain I said it every single time. Maybe they didn't hear me, but there's a difference between saying I charge my hourly rate for the initial meeting versus saying we have an initial meeting that I charge a flat fee of $350 for. People hear $350 because
Yeah.
there have been many times where I've said that on the phone, and then they'll repeat what I said. They'll say, okay, so like we do the initial meeting for $350. So they hear what I'm saying. Whereas they were not hearing me say, I'm charging my rate for the initial meeting, I guess. Or they were pretending not to hear. I don't know. Um,
So
yeah.
we established that rate, and it is on your website. So in
Mhm.
theory, they wouldn't be first finding out about this in an
Right.
interaction with you. They should actually already know
Mhm.
about it, but you also just have something concrete that you can say to them once you are actually
Yeah.
in that phone call.
Right. Because nothing is more awkward than sending someone a bill and then being like, I didn't know I had to pay this.
That's a
I mean,
nightmare.
it's infuriating and it's just uncomfortable. And then, too, that like, oh, well, this John Brown got my name from Chris Smith, the contractor that I work with all the time. And like, to John Brown, you should go tell Chris Smith that I ripped him off. And it's so uncomfortable. Like, so anyway, I think having a very clear way to explain to people how we get started it's been very, very beneficial for me.
In addition to the website copy, I helped write some
Oh,
email
yes.
templates.
Yes.
Are you using those? It sounds like you're using at least one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You helped me create email templates that I send to my clients, especially in the initial kickoff part of the process. And I don't usually send an email after the phone call that says, we're going to meet, it's going to be $350 because usually it's pretty clear that they understand that.
Because they
Um,
repeated it back to you.
because they repeated it back to me. Yeah. They either repeat it back to me. They ask, like, do I need to write you a check? Do you going to send me a link? Do I need to pay it right now? So they understand. So I don't usually send that email, but I do after I meet them, send the email that says, I'll be back to you in a couple days with an estimate. And then when I send my estimate, I use the email that you made that says, here's your estimate. The next parts of the process are to meet again, measure, take a deposit. So yes, I do use the template that you made me, and they have been great because it really saves me a lot of time. For one thing, once you just do it, you use this process over and over and over again, it kind of just becomes second nature. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to charge you this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to send you this email. I'm going to do this. So I'm not questioning to myself, and it gives me a concrete thing to put on my to-do list. I met with John Brown. I need to send John Brown the email, and then I need to write his proposal, and then I need to send John Brown's proposal. Right. And I think that having that concrete, it's A, then B, then C, then D, in my mind is one less thing I have to think about because all the other parts of my jobs are not concrete like that. They're always shifting and changing. So having the onboarding process concrete has been really great. The other thing that we did that's been really great is asking for a 50% deposit up front. It's helped my cash flow a lot. I was just charging hourly monthly. So I would send client a bill for however many hours accrued in a month, and they would pay it at the end of every month. And now I send them the proposal, and the proposal might say your project is going to be X amount of hours, which is going to equal $10,000. Please pay $5,000 up front, and then we will work against your deposit. And it's asking for a chunk of money, but it doesn't feel complicated. I think before I didn't really know how to ask for a deposit without it feeling complicated. There is a flat fee for the initial meeting. There is a proposal. The proposal will be X. You will pay half. Like, look, just like that. I just said it. It's easy. It's like, it's not hard to understand. Now, I did recently run into an experience where I had somebody with a very big project, like a $2 million project, and writing that proposal and understanding kind of how many hours to even put in it. When I sat down and wrote out the numbers, it came to like more than $100,000. It was like $120,000. And I was like, I'm not going to ask you for $60,000. I'm not going to do that. So I asked them for like 25 and we started. So, I think that there are some cases where things have to flex a little bit, but for the most part, it's worked great to ask for half of the proposal upfront. People seem fully willing to do it. Maybe it makes their life a little easier. Maybe it helps their cash flow a little bit because it's not like, okay, she said it's $20,000. Is my first bill going to be 15 or is they just know they're paying the 10 upfront and we'll go from there.
And by the time they owe you money again, you've established a lot more trust and they really understand what it
Right.
feels like to work with you.
Yes.
Have you noticed any change in your clients' behavior in terms of them being well behaved, whatever that means for you and your projects?
The well-behaved client. Um, yeah, I think the behavior shift in general that I've seen in my clients since going through this process with you has been like my clients feel more respectful of me. I always felt like people respected me, but I feel even more so they respect my process and they are fully willing to engage in the initial fee, the email correspondence of whatever I'm asking them, and then to pay the deposit amount. Like they're okay, she has a process. This is how she does things. And two, then when I say part of the process is that I purchase for you and I have someone who helps me, we do it together. And they're like, okay, great. We've already gone through this part of the process. And it was, as I said, it was going to be on my website and what I told them. Like you said, they trust the process and they trust me. So we're good to just keep rolling because it is such a long process. From the first part, the drawing, the modelings to the specifications, the finishes, and then once we get through that, the budgeting and making sure everything is on budget, and then the purchasing of those products, and then the installation of everything. I mean, it's a long process. So, I need people to trust me. If they
Yeah.
don't, nothing's going to go well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like in general, everything is more clear and everything functions better and is less stressful on the business end of it. Now, the other part, the actual job and the actual design process, yeah, like that part is not something I don't think any other,
Yeah, you can't
um,
blame me for choosing this career.
no, no,
But
no,
what we're
no,
doing is we're letting you save your creativity and your problem solving skills for your actual job instead of for the
right.
admin part of your job.
Yeah, right. Altogether, I think everything that you helped me do, I think it just kind of gave me the confidence to say, this is who I am. I put it out there for the world to see. This is who I am. This is what I do. And I'm okay with that. And once I did that, I was able to see that people were okay with it and, you know, people enjoyed what was happening and the results. And then it gives you confidence to just stick to it and say, okay, we're just gonna go with this.
Of all the things that we changed or wrote or created, which single item do you feel like made biggest impact?
I would say the biggest benefit of working with you was narrowing my client base to only my ideal clients. It really helps me say, these are my ideal clients and these are the people I want to work with. And I'm okay with that. And I've put it out there to the world and I took the DIY thing off. So I think really the thing you helped me with the most was narrowing my client base to only my ideal clients and not having the ideal clients plus Sally's sister plus a DIY project plus a paint consult for John Brown's brother, like it really helped me just narrow to just my ideal clients to focus on that, to have less working hours so that I could also have more time with my family, which was important to me because I think I told you from the beginning, I felt like I was floundering trying to do a million things, which no one can do a million things. So limiting my client base to just my ideal clients means less working hours for me, more fulfilling projects for me. It is still sad to not be working with John Brown's brother, but I know that it's what's best for me. And I think you helped me get to what's best for me, even though it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
'Cause I think everyone struggles with that, right?
Which is exactly the final question. Thinking about the
Yeah.
people who might watch this interview, what is the
Yeah.
advice you would give them, regardless of whether or not they work with me?
My advice as a designer who's owned a business for almost 10 years now is that you have to be self reflective and say, how can I make this better? How can I make it easier? How can I make things less stressful on an administrative end or on a design end? Whatever it may be, you have to be open minded to making change, even when you've been doing it a long time. And it appears to other people that it's great, even if I'm making good money, even if I have good projects. How do I make this better for myself? As a business owner, at first you want to get to like where you're making money. And then when you're making money, I think it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm making good money. I'm paying my bills. Well, just because you're making money doesn't mean that everything is necessarily going well, right? There are things that are going well, but may also be things that aren't going well, which was my case. I had a lot of really good things happening. And then there were things that were not so great, like we talked about.
And we can handle
So
that stuff for a period of time, but at some point there will be something else that happens in your life, like a parent getting sick or something where there's
having
no
another kid.
room left. Yeah, having another
Right.
kid.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Right.
What was the pivot point for you? Was it when that person didn't pay you? Like when
Yeah, it
yeah.
was. I remember that. And I remember, like, I think I was talking to you and I was like, do I want to do this? Do I want to invest this amount? Just like people invest money with me. Like, do I want to invest this amount of money to make this better? That was the point where I was like, I think I have to. Like, because that had happened to me like 3 times in that year. And I was like, I I can't keep doing this. I can't keep going to meeting with people and not being paid for it.
Because it
Like,
was
I just
literally
can't.
costing you money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was like a tipping point. But I think there were plenty of things I felt like I was repeating myself over and over, or just in general where I felt like I would get on a call with someone who I had no idea if they were willing to pay the kind of fees that I charge. At the end of the day, there's no point in me taking a phone call with someone who's going to do a DIY project, who only wants to pay just for a drawing, or they only have a $2,000 design budget. At the end of the day, that's not my ideal client. I was having phone calls where I was fielding these types of things where they had no idea, and it wasn't their fault that they didn't know. There was no info. So how were they supposed to know what to expect? I was having probably 5 phone calls a month or so where it was like a waste of 5 times 30 minutes,
Yeah.
because it wasn't my ideal client. And then like not being paid for the initial meeting, I was like, that's just, I have the ideal client. I need to figure out how to only have the ideal clients. I don't know that I knew that's what I was doing at the time, but now I realize that that's what I was doing.
You were already really clear on who you wanted to attract. You were just trying to make sure that that is who you were attracting. So you were doing less
Right.
administrative work, getting rid of people that shouldn't be there in the first place.
Right. Yeah. It's really easy to throw your whole self at your business, but I have a family and I have to also have mental capacity and time and energy to spend with them. Like they're really important to me. I had to find a way to have better boundaries and be more equally split and not more business heavy than more family heavy. And I mean, I've definitely done that. Like my work hours are way more normal now. It's scary to go through this process and to be more selective. I think it's because you're afraid that if you say no to the small things, like, will you still be able to pay your bills? You have to trust that the universe is going to supply you with the right people. That if you, even if you say no to some things, you're still going to have the right things that make it work.
I mean, you
So
are proof that it is
yeah,
possible.
yeah, it's scary, right?
Thank
Oh
you
no, no,
so much for letting me be part of this and for letting me
yeah.
follow up on how it's going.
Thank you. I appreciate you.